The letter came on a Tuesday, slipped under my door like a venomous snake. Its HOA letterhead glaring in crisp black ink. $350. 000 in fines. For what? A fence 6 inches too tall. A mailbox painted sage green instead of approved beige. And a backyard fire pit they claimed was a fire hazard. My hands shook as I read it, the paper crinkling like dry leaves under my grip. I could smell the faint lavender of my neighbor Karen's perfume on itched, probably hand-delivered it herself, smirking as she slid it under my door. The HOA president, Karen Vanderwalt, had been gunning for me since I moved into this gated suburban hellscape 6 months ago. My little house, a fixer-upper I'd poured my savings into, was apparently an affront to her meticulously curated neighborhood aesthetic. I sighed, long and heavy, the kind of sigh that carries the weight of 1,000 tiny battles lost. This wasn't just about a fence or a mailbox. This was war. I stood in my kitchen, the morning sun slicing through the blinds, casting sharp shadows on the linoleum floor. The coffee maker gurgled, its bitter aroma mixing with the stale air of defeat. I tried reasoning with Karen before calmly, politely, like the small-town girl I was raised to be. Karen, I'd said at the last HOA meeting, my voice steady despite the room's suffocating tension. I'm just trying to make this place my own. I'll fix the fence. Okay. Her response, a tight-lipped smile, her Botoxed forehead gleaming under the fluorescent lights, and a single word, non-compliant. The room had erupted in murmurs, her loyal minions nodding like bobbleheads. I'd felt the heat creep up my neck, the sting of being an outsider in a place I was supposed to call home. That night, I sat on my sagging couch, the HOA letter crumpled on the coffee table, and scrolled through my phone. The neighborhood's private X group was buzzing. Posts from Karen. All caps. Certain residents need to respect our community standards. Subtle. I tossed my phone aside, the screen's glow fading into the dim room. The fines were impossible. $350. 000 would bankrupt me. I'd lose the house. My fresh start. Everything. My chest tightened. Each breath a jagged edge. Outside, a dog barked, sharp and insistent, echoing the chaos in my head. I needed a plan, but all I had was rage and a half-empty bottle of Merlot. The next morning, I drove to the county records office, my beat-up Honda rattling over the manicured streets of Willow Creek. The air smelled of fresh-cut grass and privilege, a stark contrast to the dusty archives I stepped into. The clerk, a wiry man named Harold with glasses perched on his nose, barely looked up as I asked for the property records. Lot 17, Willow Creek, I said, my voice clipped. He shuffled off, muttering about budget cuts, and returned with a stack of yellow documents. I spread them out on a wobbly table, the musty scent of old paper filling my lungs. That's when I saw Ida Surveyor's map from 1972. The ink faded but legible. My heart thudded. The boundary line for my property wasn't where the HOA said it was. It extended 50 feet further, right into the backyards of Karen's cul-de-sac cronies. Their McMansions, with their sparkling pools and manicured hedges, were built on my land. I leaned back in the creaky chair, the room spinning. This wasn't just a loophole. It was a grenade. I could hear the faint hum of the fluorescent lights overhead, feel the cool metal of the table under my palms. Harold coughed, breaking the silence. Find what you need, he asked, peering over his glasses. I nodded, my lips twitching into a smile I hadn't felt in months. Oh, yeah, I said, my voice low, like I was sharing a secret with the universe. I didn't know it then, but Harold wasn't just a clerk. He'd been fighting his own battles with the HOA for years, ever since they'd fined him for planting wildflowers in his front yard. You going after Vanderwalt? He asked, his eyes glinting with something like hope. I hesitated, then nodded again. Good, he said, sliding a business card across the table. Call this guy. He's a lawyer. Hates HOAs as much as I do. The lawyer, Mike Torres, was a bulldog in a cheap suit. His office smelled of stale coffee and determination, the kind of place where dreams of justice went to battle bureaucracy. This is gold, he said, tapping the surveyor's map with a pen. The HOA's been strong-arming people for years. But this flips the script. His voice was gravelly, like he'd smoked one too many cigars. But it carried a fire that matched mine. We spent hours strategizing, the clock ticking louder with every passing minute. Mike warned me it wouldn't be easy. Karen had deep pockets and deeper connections. She's got half the town council in her book club, he said, rolling his eyes. But I was done playing nice. I wanted blood, or at least justice that tasted like it. The lawsuit hit like a thunderstorm. I filed a claim asserting my property rights, demanding the HOA rescind the fines and redraw the boundary lines. The X group exploded. Karen posted a novel-length rant, calling me a disruptive element and a threat to community harmony. Her followers piled on, their comments dripping with vitriol. I didn't care. I stood in my backyard, the evening air heavy with the scent of jasmine, and stared at the invisible line where my land ended and theirs began. The sound of Karen's pool filter humming next door felt like a taunt. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms, and whispered to myself, "This ends now." Court day arrived, and the tension was a living thing, coiling around me as I walked into the courthouse. The room smelled of polished wood and nervous sweat. Karen sat across from me, her designer suit pristine, her blonde hair pulled into a severe bun. She didn't look at me, but I could feel her disdain, sharp as a blade. Mike was a pit bull, tearing into the HOA's records, exposing years of overreach fines for unapproved flower pots, threats over kids' lemonade stands, even a case where they'd bullied an elderly couple into selling their home. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, listened intently, her pen scratching notes like a metronome. Then came the twist. Harold, the clerk, took the stand. He wasn't just a bystander who'd been digging through records for years, collecting evidence of the HOA's shady dealings. He presented a bombshell. The HOA had known about the boundary error for decades, but buried it to protect property values. Gasps rippled through the courtroom, a low hum of shock. Karen's face went pale, her lips parting in a silent protest. I caught her eye for a split second, and the fury there was electric, but it was laced with something new: fear. The judge's gavel fell like thunder. The ruling was clear, the fines were voided, the boundary lines redrawn. Karen's cul-de-sac, with its million-dollar homes, was on my land. They'd have to negotiate easements or face demolition. I stepped outside into the blinding sunlight, my heart pounding, the air tasting of freedom and dust. Mike clapped me on the shoulder, his grin wide. "You did it," he said. I didn't feel victorious, not yet. I felt raw, like I'd clawed my way out of a grave. That night, I stood on my porch, the crickets singing a jagged chorus. Karen's house was dark, her pool silent for once. I heard she'd left town, her reputation in tatters, her HOA empire crumbling. The X group was quiet now, the vultures scattered. I sipped my wine, the glass cool against my lips, and let out a shaky breath. This wasn't just about land or fines. It was about standing up when the world tells you to sit down, about fighting when the odds are stacked against you. I looked out at my little house, the sage-green mailbox glowing faintly in the moonlight, and smiled. Sometimes, justice tastes like lavender and ashes.